So my name is Caroline de Posada. This is our Connect with Gato Expert series. I am so excited to share with you experts on all topics of mindset, wellness, and relationships. Today is a very special call for me. We actually had this guest on last month. And for those of you that saw him, if you were on this call, he was absolutely incredible and so inspirational. And for reasons beyond our understanding, our call was deleted and lost forever. Now, I'm going to choose to believe that the reason that the call was deleted was because we were supposed to have this call again. For whatever the reason, Chad was supposed to be here with us live one more time to share his message with you. And then, of course, we will this time have the replay to be able to share with so many more people. But I really wanted to say a huge thanks to Chad for taking the time to come back and to have another interview with me, because he is super, super busy. In fact, today's call is only going to run about 40 minutes because he's got to get on a plane to go inspire someone else. So he is very busy. He's on a tight crunch. So we're going to get started right away so that you get as much access to him as possible today. Please help me welcome Chad Hymas.
Hey guys. Chad. Hi, everybody. How are you doing?
We are doing great. I am
Good.
So excited to have you here. Thank you for coming back again.
Well, it's my pleasure. I am. This is truly an honor. You know how I felt about your father, and you are taking his place. I think there's nothing greater than legacy, and I feel the same way about you. And I feel the same way that you do. I don't think that this is serendipity or karma. I think this is supposed to happen. So I'm glad that I truly am. I'm glad that this worked out. And this is this is not a rush deal today. We're going to take the time that we need to and spend some time with our folks, and looking forward to it. Hello, I can see everybody on the screen. I got a massive screen. So I am in my studio today. So I do see Daisy's there, except for Daisy's camera's off, and Owen's there. Owen's camera's off. Betsy, no one has their camera on. Good grief, you guys. Turn your cameras on so I can see your faces.
Well,
anyway,
guys,
so
turn your cameras on so you can see Chad.
I can see, I can. There's Betsy. So I got Betsy there. Betsy looks like she's getting a massage done at some massage parlor. Look at that. She just looks like, so at least so there's Laura. I've got Laura up now. So so I love seeing faces. So it's good to see you guys. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah. All right. So that's awesome that you get to see everybody. And I love that you're interactive, which, by the way, if you guys have a question for Chad, we could do this in podcast form and not make these events live. And I could just interview Chad and ask him questions and then post the podcast. But the reason that we do this live is because I want to give access to you, the listener, to ask questions. If you want to put a question, put it in the chat. That's what he's here for. He's so generous with his time, and people pay thousands and thousands of dollars to be able to see him. So this is a gift to be able to have him here all to yourself for these 40 minutes. So in order to get started, I think we have no choice but to get started with your story, Chad, because the people that weren't on here before need to know how you got to where you are today. So can you please start by sharing with us the accident that changed your life?
Sure. I mean, it's not a bad place to start. I think it's kind of cool today. We're a little bit different arena than we were last time we visited. The last time we talked, I was in the office. Today I'm in the studio, so I can kind of share it via some maybe a couple of photographs that I normally don't get to share with with people in this kind of a setting. So here's a kind of a cool shot of Shondell and I and our family before the accident. I don't know if you've seen this before, Carolyn, or not, but there's a cool shot right there. So there's Shondell and I 2 days before the accident. That's our last photograph. So you can see that Shondell and I have 2 little boys. Ace was 3 in that picture, and Kyler was 1. And that's 2 days prior, Laura, right there. That's just 48 hours before I would have a life-altering injury. And I'll just share it with you briefly. She called me up on my cell phone, and she asked me if I would hurry home from work that day to see that little kid in that stroller take his first steps. So there he is right there, and to see his first steps. And I told Shondell that I would hurry, but I had to stop by the field to feed the animals in our farm. So let's make a long story short. I raced to the field to feed the animals on the farm. I've always wanted to be a farmer. That's always been my dream. Chandel and I actually live on a ranch. I'm coming to you from the studio at the ranch today. And I raced to the field and I got on a tractor and went over to the haystack, and I loaded up a bale of hay that weighs more than most vehicles on some forks. I lifted the bale up 15 feet in the air, and I ignored a warning light on my tractor, and the bale of hay rolled over backwards because there wasn't enough hydraulic oil to hold the bale in place. And that punched my head to the steering wheel, and the shaft is what went through my mouth, breaking everything in its path. This has all been redone. The doctors were able to fix everything but the spinal cord. And so there I was left as a quadriplegic. And so I'm numb in all 4 limbs. I think I can go to a different camera and show you that. I am in a chair today. I do push, but I don't use my arms. I use my shoulders to push. My hands are numb, they're curled. And I'm 95% numb today, but I do seem to get around decently. So that works out okay.
You know, you said that last time. You said that you only use your shoulders, and it's so hard for me to understand that because you look like you have mobility in your arms.
Yeah, so and that's a great point. My fingers are curled, they're bent. This one's a little bit more bent, and I don't have any forearms, and I don't have any triceps, so I can't lift the arm up from this point. I don't have any biceps. So after some therapy and some physical therapy, I learned how to use my shoulders to my advantage to get forward thrust. And even though I can't feel the tires on my chair, and the tires are made of knobby tires, I use friction against mountain bike tires to get thrust and to get some exercise. My wheelchair only weighs 4 pounds. There's no electric power push to that, but it allows me to get some sort of burn off on calories and maintain a proper weight so that I can travel alone and yet have other people whom I've never met help me lift into vehicles or help me get into a hotel bed where I might not be able to transfer by myself. And so I need to keep my weight at a manageable weight. And so that pushing of the chair, rather than being in an electric wheelchair, allows me in my circumstance. Now, this doesn't go for everybody because not everybody has that ability as I do, but it allows me to try and get the exercise as well as watching how much intake I have with food. So
thank you for sharing that, because I've always wondered, right? Like you look more mobile than what you actually are,
Sure.
but it's just how hard you've worked at becoming that way, and I think it should not go unnoticed of how much you've done to get to where you are today, and how you've learned to use what you do have to your advantage, which so many of us fail to do. So you get into this accident, you have this accident, and you realize that you are not going to move. But in the last call, you shared the person who told you you were never going to walk again, and I'd love for you to share that story today with our audience.
It's my father, but he didn't tell me that I wasn't going to walk again. He was very careful with his words. My dad was. I mean, I am as close to my father as you are to yours, Caroline. My dad and I are tight, and I am fortunate to be able to speak with my father today, as you are. You just don't hear his voice back, or maybe you do. I tend to think that the veil is very, very thin. But with that said, I think our fathers never leave us. I think they're always watching over us. My dad came to me in the hospital, and he gave me some good news. And he gave me some news that I didn't want to hear. The good news was the doctors were able to fix my neck, even though they weren't able to fix the spinal cords. They used titanium, and they welded it back together. The bad news was not that I wasn't going to walk. In fact, he didn't even use the word paralyzed. And the reason why he didn't do that is because there are people that can walk that are more paralyzed than me today. I mean, you've met people like that, Caroline. There might be some people on this call that have full function of all 4 limbs that are more trapped than me. My dad just said that I lost all 4. And then he challenged me with a call to action to be a better father to my 2 boys, to be a better husband to Shondell, to be a better farmer, to be a better guide, to be a better contributor to society. He asked me to do all that. And I thought it was a tough ask of him. I thought, in fact, I'm just saying it nicely, I actually thought he lacked credibility, and it caused this anger in me because I didn't think he came from a credible source to be able to ask this of me when he had no idea what I was going through. And my dad began to explain to me and teach me that people that refuse to adapt to change find themselves more trapped than somebody that's numb. So he asked me to change some things about my life. He asked me to change how I walk. And you're seeing that right now. So I walk differently, which allows me to get from point A to point B. My clothing, we should talk about my clothing right now. I don't like what I'm wearing today. I don't like my clothing. I'll be honest. I live on a farm. What do farmers wear? Laura, do you know? Laura, unmute. Laura, you can talk to me. I'll talk to Laura, unmute. Laura, I live on a farm in the Rocky Mountains out west. You can unmute yourself. You can unmute. Laura, do you know what farmers wear? Unmute, unmute. Hit the button down on the far left.
There you go. I imagine overalls or thicker clothing that protects you against what's on the field. I'm not sure.
Let's clarify. Let's clarify. Overalls is what a hillbilly wears.
I own overalls here.
Overalls is what Larry the Cable Guy wears. Overalls is a redneck farmer. Out west, farmers wear Wranglers. They wear cowboy boots. They wear flannel shirts, all of which I can't wear, Laura. So the boots are too narrow for my feet. They're made of leather, and my feet fill up with water. So today my shoes, I know you can't see them on the camera, but my shoes they're made of net. They're Adidas brand, and they're 2 sizes too big, so I can put them on with my teeth. My pants, I don't know if we can do this or not. My pants they're not khakis. They're made of slick neoprene so that I can slide them on with a slide technique and some Velcro straps that my wife made for my thumbs. And my shirt, I actually have on 3 shirts. Let's see if I can show you this. So I have on a long sleeve, 2 long sleeve long john shirts because I'll be flying today and I want to stay warm. And then I have on this short sleeve black shirt that looks like it's kind of connected to the long sleeve, but it's not. It's a short sleeve t-shirt so that I can put it on by myself. It takes me 2 hours to do that. Now, I'm not talking about this principle to brag to all of you or to be arrogant. My dad told me that adapting to change would make me less paralyzed. And so that's why I've changed how much I eat. I've changed how I coach my kids. I've changed how I court my spouse. I've changed how I love her. I've changed how I spend time with my family. I've changed everything. And so when I adapt to those changes, more doors open to me in the process. So I'm going to repeat this one more time because I think Carolyn really wants to nail this point home. People that refuse to adapt to a changing world, and our world is changing very fast now, will find themselves trapped in their old patterns, and that's the definition of paralysis. So I find myself more free than people that can walk because I'm really trying to adapt to change. So
that's beautiful. So at that time when you were with your father and you felt angry, and this is a question that I feel everybody needs to hear the answer to, that is, how long or how were you able to start that process of adapting? Because I'm sure that I'm sure that you're still adapting, but there has to have been a moment or a time where you accepted the challenge, and I have to assume it didn't come right away. So how did it come?
It didn't come quick. My dad wanted it to come quick, but it didn't come quick. The hospital was good. But when I got home, I realized how dependent I was on other people. And I don't know that too many of us in this world like to be dependent on others. There's some form and level of independency that we like about being able to shower in private. There's some form of independence and sacredness about being able to get dressed and choose our clothing on our own without anybody watching us, right? And so showering ourselves, whatever it might be, getting dressed, cutting up your own food, feeding yourself. We can go on and on and on. So when I got home, I realized how difficult this was going to be. And I ended up going into a place of stagnancy, or I call it living the life of kelp, seaweed, where you just kind of exist in the ocean floor and you watch everybody else pass you by. And that's what I was doing. And my dad called me up after a few years of me being stuck in this very dark abyss. And he said something to me that was life-changing. And he said this: would you do things for others that you won't do for yourself? And I'm posing that same question to all of you. Are there times in your lives where you do things for others that you won't do for yourself? And I would think that most of you would say, yes, for sure. And I said, yes. My dad said, it's obvious that your children aren't being fathered. You're just sitting in a bed all day long, and they're not being taught how to dream. They're not being engaged with by their father. So their grandfather is going to step in and play the role of their father. Goodbye. And he hung up. And it didn't take me long, Carolyn. I mean, it didn't. I mean, listen, I'm a stubborn person and I got a lot of pride. But when it comes to these two boys, I'll do anything. I will give up both kidneys for those boys. I will give my heart in a transplant for either one of those boys to live. When my dad brought up my boys, well, I changed real quick. And I said, what do you want me to do, sir? He said, I'll meet you tomorrow morning. We're going to go out and play basketball. I need you to teach your boys how to play ball. I said, yes, sir. And for the first time in 5 years, I went out, not because of me, but because of somebody else. So the point that I would like to make with this, Carolyn, is that in these few short minutes that we have to share together today, please don't make this Zoom call about you personally. Make it about somebody else in your life that could benefit from your influence, because this Zoom call will mean more to you. Whenever we do things with other people in mind, we become selfless servants and we become influencers of other people for the better good. And that's what our world is yearning for today, I believe. And so I really think that trying to focus on others more than ourselves does a couple of things. Number one, it allows us to be selfless people and we focus on others more than ourselves first. Number two, it gets our minds off our problems. It doesn't mean that our problems go away. One of the challenges I have is that I'm numb. It hasn't gone away. I'm still numb, but I don't have time to think about it. So right now I'm on a Zoom call with you. As soon as we're done with the Zoom call, I'm going to go upstairs and have a quick bite to eat with Shondell and a goodbye lunch, and I'm going to go catch a plane. I don't have time to think about the challenges that I face. So when you're focused on other people, those are two massive blessings that happen in our lives. We just don't have the time to think about our problems, and they become less significant in our lives.
I love that. And you talk about your kids, but I also feel like you have a responsibility to a lot more people than your kids, because you have become the kind of person who has dedicated his life to everyone, to so many people, right? I mean, this is what you do for a living. So how did you start that? How did you feel that you were worthy or capable of imparting knowledge and wisdom to other people, not just your kids, but other people that needed that wisdom or that may have gone through what you went through when you yourself felt like you were in such a dark place? Because I know you started sharing like pretty soon, like you were like talking to churches like 3 months after.
I was, yeah, 3 months later I started, but the truth is there's not too many people that I meet that find themselves trapped in a wheelchair or paralyzed that go through what I go through. Very, very few people on this Zoom call are going to go through what I went through and survive it. So I don't try and make it about me in the wheelchair. There are people that are on this call that have gone through depression. There are people that are on this call that have gone through an abyss, a dark time in their life. Maybe it's called divorce. Maybe it's called the loss of a loved one. And in that, we share something in common, right? I mean, Carolyn, you lost your father at a very, very young age to a very, very sad disease. And that just doesn't make sense to us. And in that, you and I share something in common. So we honor our losses by the way that we live our life moving forward. That's how the speaking started to me. I used to think that farming involved a cowboy hat, Wrangler jeans, a plaid shirt, and cowboy boots. Now I realize that farming, if I change my perspective, now includes people. So I'm very passionate about farming. I just changed how I look at it. So I call that I call that living a life of intention or abundance, which means that you have purpose, passion, and perspective on your goals and your vision. I do have perspective on farming. It doesn't mean that I have to be on a farm here in the Rocky Mountains. I can be farming in Michigan tomorrow. I can be farming in New York the next day. I can be farming in Korea or South Carolina or Australia. And so the farm's expanded. How I got to do this is somebody asked me if I would go speak in church, and I wouldn't do it because I didn't want to be seen in front of other people. So think about this for a second. I refused to go and get and be engaged and involved in other people's lives because I was worried about myself and the perception that others would have on me. And I didn't want to be seen in a wheelchair, and I did not want pity. So I stayed at home for months. I just sat on the bed and I watched NFL on Sunday, and I watched Judge Judy Monday through Saturday. She's very addictive. And so I just kind of watched. That's what I did. And the pastor came to my house and he said, I want you to come talk to the church members who've been serving you dinner and taking care of your family. And it took some time for me to accept, but after I did, I did accept the challenge, and I wheeled my chair up to the pulpit, and I spoke to a congregation of about 300 people. And I don't think I used any kind of religious verbiage at all. I just told them that I was grateful for them. I told them some true feelings that I was going through, that I was struggling, accepting help, and that I didn't like, the way that Shondell had to help me. And I know I said for better or worse. I mean, I just went through this gamut of things and just kind of shared some things and tried to make it relatable to them. And when I was done, a guy from the congregation walked up to me, shook my hand, and said, we're having our company meeting in Las Vegas next week. I'm going to have you take the religion out of it. I want you to tie leadership into it. I'll teach you how to do that. I need my people to hear from you. And that was the first engagement I had ever done. He ended up sending me to all 43 of his branches across the US over the next year. And that's how it all started right there. Now, let's talk about that just for 1 second. I waited 3 months to go to church to do that one presentation. Look at how wrong I robbed myself of an opportunity to serve other people because I was focused on myself. That's an important piece. I waited 3 months. So the message is for those of you that are going to watch, that are watching this now, and those that are going to watch it later on, the recording, you must act with urgency on your good impressions and your instincts. Otherwise, we take the chance of not acting at all or robbing ourselves of time, of the urgency to help and influence other people. I'll give you one quick idea. As soon as we're done with today's Zoom call, pick up your cell phone and send a text message off to somebody in your life. Carolyn, for you, might be one of your nieces or your nephews. Says something like this. Hey, this is Aunt Caroline, just got off a Zoom call. It was a good Zoom call. I was inspired, made me think of you. Now you're giving the credit to the nephew or the niece. The next time that nephew or niece is having a dark moment in their life, depression, suicidal thoughts, some sort of anxiety, they're going to know one thing for sure. Aunt Carolyn loves me. She needs me. Then that's how they fight it off. I just gave you all an idea right now of how to be an influencer or a farmer in other people's lives. Send a text message off to somebody in your life, letting them know the value that they have in your life. Watch what happens when you do that.
So something that I want to bring up that I noticed is a connection. The connection of, so you waited 3 months because you were thinking of yourself and to go out to another, to serve in a church. And you were also in a dark place for 5 years. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because most of us are of the opinion that we cannot be of service until we have fixed what's wrong, until we're no longer in a dark place, until we've adapted to the change, until we've overcome the battle, until we have the certificate or the degree or the credibility or the money or the fame or the relationship or whatever, so that then when we are in a position to be able to impart wisdom, then we can come with our best face on and we can do that. But what I'm hearing that you did was you went on without your best face on. You went on while you went out to serve even when you were in a dark place, before you were playing basketball with your sons and before you were being, adapting to this change.
So
Will
let's
you
be
talk a
real.
little bit about that?
Yeah, so nobody's in a perfect state. So if you go out there as a perfect person and trying to wait for credibility or some sort of a degree, like you called it, people can't relate to that. They can relate to authenticity. They can relate to you being real. And that's where your wisdom comes from, where you're going through a dark place and this is how you're battling it. So that's why I'm very honest in my public speeches and my talks about what I'm doing today to try and get through it, because it's a journey. It's an ongoing journey. I will never have this mastered, and I accept that. And no one should expect me to have it mastered. No one masters life. Whoever said that practice makes perfect, that's a stupid quote. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes progress. And so as long as people are on that progress journey, we're all on it together, they can relate to that. That's what makes it relatable. And so if we're waiting to have this degree or some sort of this crescendo of where in fact, I was most recently asked, hey, when did you and Shondell finally figure it out? Are you joking me? We're still figuring it out. We've been married for 28 years. We're still figuring it out, and we will continue to figure it out. But we do know that we're going to figure it out. Does that make sense? So we have this goal that we're going to figure it out. We just know that we don't have the answers to all the problems or all the dilemmas or COVID or financial situations or decisions. And so we're continuing to grow. And the day that you hit that degree, the day that you are done growing, should probably be the day that you die. It's very, very strong, but the day that we stop learning or have the desire to learn, there's never an end to wisdom. There's never an end to learning. There's never an end to growth. There's not some sort of degree that says, oh, you know what, you're an expert in this field of choice. I don't believe that some sort of degree or credential behind your name makes you an expert in any kind of a field whatsoever. I believe that common sense does.
You said, and I'm bringing this up from the last call, but you touched on it now again. So I want to make sure that I address it, because it really struck me when you said it last time. You were talking about my dad, and you said something that really impressed upon me. You said, Caroline, your dad was doing good work, and he was young, and he was vibrant, and he died from cancer. And I made a stupid decision to ignore a warning light, and I got to live. And you also said, sometimes things happen that just don't make sense, and that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that I lived. It doesn't make sense that he died. And since that conversation that we had, Chad, there has been several things that have happened in our local community, things that just don't make sense. Tragedies. There was just a tragedy here in Miami, a boating accident where a senior in high school passed away. Another one's in a coma. A father who, wasn't drinking, wasn't doing anything wrong, just had an accident, an unforeseen accident, and all this tragedy has resulted from it. And the whole community is deeply affected by it. And in situations like that, when things don't make sense, how do you move forward? How do you live through that?
I have one simple answer. I read a passage in a book that says, lean not unto thine own understanding. In other words, there's a greater plan than what I have in my mind, and I can't possibly understand it right now. And so I'm not saying that you all have to believe that passage that I just shared with you. You don't have to believe it if you don't want to, but I do. And that's what allows me to wake up every morning with purpose, passion, and perspective. I don't have to understand why Caroline's father died and I got to live. It certainly does not make sense to me. But it doesn't have to. And I don't have to understand why everything happens the way that it does. I don't have to understand why so many kids, fourth graders, were shot up in Uvalde, Texas. I feel bad about that. It hurts me to the core, but I don't have to have a full understanding of that. I don't have to understand why there's a war in Ukraine, why people can't just get along, or we have to judge other people for their gender preference, or that we have to be so politically engaged and there's so much negativity. All I need to know is that I need to focus on having some courage and be kind to as many people as possible, without any predisposement to judgment of other people. And I'm supposed to treat everybody in a kind manner. And when I think about that, and think about that I don't have to understand everything, then doors open up for me. And when it's my time, when my time's up, my time's up. And I can accept that. And that's what allows me to wake up at 2 a.m. to catch a 5 o'clock flight. That's what allows me to fly tonight. I'll arrive at 1 a.m. I'll arrive to my final destination at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm fine with that because I have purpose, passion, and perspective on that. And so I don't have to understand everything. And I hope that makes sense to all of you. Again, you don't have to believe it.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying you don't have to believe it, but because I do, it allows me to do some things that belief is everything. What I believe drives my action. My action drives the results that I get. So you all might want to be very careful what you believe in your life about yourself and stop comparing yourself to other people. When I compare myself to other husbands that hold their wives' hands and walk down a street, I'm miserable. I'm unhappy, I'm unsuccessful. But when I focus on what I still have with Shondell, our relationship is beyond beautiful. When I focus or think about other dads that are able to play catch with their boys, I'm unsuccessful and unhappy. My boys today, well, they're a little bit older than that other picture. So here's the picture that I showed you earlier. Those boys are now let me go get it. Those boys are now 25 and 23. Ace is married. There's Shondell. And we've adopted a little boy from Ethiopia. And Gracie comes to us from Guatemala. We adopted from Guatemala. So again, the only reason why I bring up this family photo to you is because this photo exists because of my belief system. It's not because I'm better. It's not because I'm a better family person or a better father or because I can afford to adopt because I have more money. It's because of what I believe. So what do you believe about your self-worth? What do you believe about your ability to influence, even though you haven't mastered some sort of dilemma in your life or you haven't overcome? You don't have to overcome drugs and alcohol and substance abuse to go and give some sort of advice on substance abuse. You don't have to master it first. If I were to wait to be an expert in becoming a quadriplegic, I wouldn't be out there teaching people or writing books. I'm just writing a journal on my journey, and people can relate to that because they're on the same journey. And so I think we just share our successes and our failures because people learn from failures.
And there was one more thing that I wanted to point out about your comment about making sense. And that is that when you made that comparison of not making sense, and you said, it didn't make sense that I made a stupid decision and I got to live. I thought it was so beautiful that you value life so much that you are willing to take life, even with the not having use of your 4 limbs. You'd be willing to take life, even with whatever hits come your way. And what I find is that, and when you talk about other people being more paralyzed than you, is that we often are so stuck in even the minor things that happen in our lives about whether they're unfair or they're unjust or they shouldn't have happened to us or they hurt so bad that we forget that the gift is life entirely, just to live it.
Absolutely. No matter how long it is, right? No matter how long it is, because none of us know that answer. And so just the gift of life in and of itself and the gift of selfless service and the gift of selflessness. I mean, there's no greater way to go than to leave a legacy. Because when you and I die, Carolyn, and we will die just like your father has passed, we all leave this life with the same amount of money in our pockets. What we leave behind is different, and that's legacy. And your father left a pretty good one, enough that you were inspired to carry it on. I don't know a greater way that a father could live and be more proud than to leave a legacy that gets carried on long after he's gone. That's what I'm trying to create. I'm trying to create the same thing that your dad did, a legacy that where my kids had this passion and burning desire to not let it die. That's why your dad's got to be looking down from heaven, just with exuberant joy, because what greater gift can one have? I don't think there is a greater gift than that your children have carried on what you started. And so I think that's a huge blessing.
Thank you, Chad. You know, I said this in my last call, and I want to share it with you. So my dad used to send me postcards from everywhere he went in the world, because he couldn't be with me every day, right? So because he wasn't around, and he was divorced from my mom, the way he stayed in touch with me was by sending me postcards. And I've come to realize in the 7 years since he's passed, and you say, you know, you have a relationship with him, it's different. He doesn't talk back to you. The way that I've carried on is that I feel like I continue to receive postcards from my father, and the postcards don't come in the mail anymore in a little paper, but they come in the form of friendships, of mentors, of videos of his, of old things that I discover about him, of stories. And you are one of his postcards. Like, I consider you to be one of my postcards.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, that pierces my heart. Thank you. I loved your dad. Your dad was so good to me. I mean, he was my liaison when I came to Florida, and he picked me up at the airport. I mean, when he picked me up, I mean, he picked me up. I mean, he picked me up and put me in his vehicle and spent time with me. And yeah, I mean, I miss him. I quite frankly can't wait to see him again. I cannot. I mean, Shondell says whenever I say that, she says I can wait. No, I can't wait. I'm excited to reunite with some of those individuals that have had a great impact on my life.
So I have one final question for you, because I know you have to get on a plane, and that is, with everything you've shared.
You're okay.
Well, I want to make sure I honor your time, and if anybody has any questions, make sure you put it quickly, because we're almost out of time. But one of the things I wanted to end with is, you've had this life-changing event that has given you the opportunity to change your perspective, to become a better farmer, a better father, a better husband. And oftentimes, like, we go through these transformations when we've been through tragedy. But you and I talked about it in the last call, how unfortunate it is that we have to go through tragedy to be able to have that perspective shift. So if you could leave us with anything, what would you leave for the people that maybe haven't experienced that tragedy to that degree, but still have an opportunity to change their perspective and become better farmers and better fathers and wives and mothers and husbands and all of it, like just better humans? What advice do you have for those people?
I would say it with one sentence, and I like to show video to illustrate it. Don't wait to lose something in your life before the legacy becomes sacred to you. Don't wait to have a loss before it becomes, and Carolyn didn't wait. She had the postcard. She had the relationship with her dad. Don't wait to lose a relationship. Don't wait to lose your own health before your health becomes important to you. Act with urgency on those instincts. Unfortunately, the only tragedy about my accident is it took my accident for me to realize what my potential really was. Like, I'll say it again, the only tragedy about this is not the fact that I'm in a wheelchair. The wheelchair is freedom for me. The only tragedy is it took my wheelchair for me to realize what I still had going for me. So in order to illustrate that for you, I'm going to take you here to a video, which is live footage. Do you remember, Carolyn, what I missed the night that I broke my neck? I missed something very special. What was it? The night that I got hurt.
You missed your son's first steps, wasn't it?
My mom got it live on a camera, on a video. She got it live. And we'll end with that. That's live footage.
There are times when
I'm in a coma, 4.5 months. When I woke up, I couldn't even feed myself. I couldn't feed myself. She came in and told me that she would feed me for the rest of my life. I was suicidal back then. I did not want to have somebody else feed me. There was no way I was going to live like that. So right now I'm in a state of suicide and depression, even though I'm just going through this journey. Right there, that's a journey. That's a journey right there. But something happens right here. When you and I consistently put forth effort and keep trying, even though we're in a stuck position, things happen. Look, I'm still stuck. She moves me, and then I move myself right there. That's a big step forward right there. So now I'm getting after it. I have a little bit of motivation. I learned how to put a shirt on 6 months later. I learned how to push a wheelchair with sticky gloves. That's my therapist in the yellow shirt. He's a little cocky, but that's all right. I like him. Watch. Here it is, Carolyn. First time I got to see the boys, 5 months later. 5 months. Look at him run. Look. Dad, I missed you. Dad, Mom said your legs don't work anymore. I don't care, Dad. Dad, you promised you would be our basketball coach and our farmer, Dad. I'm going to get your basketball clothes on right now. So look what he does in the ICU of the hospital. He gets my hospital clothes off of me, sees me naked, and puts my basketball clothes on. Look at him. He's getting me ready to play basketball with him in the hospital. Look at that. Now we're playing basketball in the hospital room. Look at his face. When I saw him smile, I never thought about suicide ever again. You feel the notes feel. Helicopter, must be game day. I don't miss the kids' games. There's the helicopter right there coming up. I do not miss my kids' games. There's our ranch today. We still have the farm today where Shondell and I live. And that's the Great Salt Lake of Salt Lake City, Utah. I've always wanted to fly. Once was enough too. I'm never doing that again. I guess I would leave with this. Are my dreams coming true today? Yes or no?
Yes.
Sure. Not in spite of a loss, but because of it. And I would say the same is going on for you, Carolyn. You've experienced massive loss, and yet you're still fulfilling dreams and legacy because of the loss. I think we need to look at our losses and honor our losses by the way that we live our life moving forward. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to honor a mistake and a loss by the way that I live my life moving forward, realizing that I haven't perfected it yet. That's all it is.
Thank you, Chad. I think everyone can agree that we are all leaving a little more inspired than we thought we would after a 40-minute lunch and learn with you. And then the next time that we meet, because I'm going to have you on again, we're going to ask you how you stay present in the lives of your family members when you're traveling all the time, fulfilling your purpose. But we're going to ask you that question the next time because you have to go. So,
well, we should have another 40-minute lunch and learn, or an hour lunch and learn. We can do that.
That's right. So that's what we're going to do. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story with us. We so appreciate you, and have a great flight. Have a great trip.
Thank you,
and
guys.
go inspire
God bless
the world. Being the best farmer ever.
You guys take care. Thanks for having me.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye, Carolyn. Love you.
Love you too.